Is there anyone I
Soul
missed?
loves
One more.
Jesus. Soul loves Jesus. Soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. Soul loves Jesus. Soul loves Jesus. Bless his name.
Two,
Soul loves Jesus.
bring
Yes,
Keisha
it
up.
does.
Then y'all can go back.
Bless his name for his
Come
worthy to
on
be
down. Or is
praised.
it
I
come
will
on up? Come
praise
on
his
up.
name for his worthy to be praised. From the
Again, when you're
rising of the
finished,
sun,
you can go back.
setting of the same. So
It's just so
love
much
Jesus, bless his
easier. Yes,
name.
with the mic, so much easier.
He's mine, he's mine, and
What's
I
that
love
mean?
him. Mine and I
Oh,
love him.
three, and then
He's mine and I love him.
what did they say?
Mine and I love him. Ooh, mine. I will bless his name for his worthy to be praised. I will praise his name for his worthy to be praised. From the rising of the sun, the setting of the same, so loves Jesus, bless his name. So loves Jesus, bless his name. I will bless him. Yes, I will. For his worthy to be praised. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the same, so loves Jesus, bless his name. So loves Jesus, bless his name. I will bless him. I will bless his name. For his worthy to be praised. From the rising of the sun, the setting of the same, so loves Jesus, bless his name. Lord, so loves Jesus, bless his name. He's a wonder in
That
my soul. He cleansed and made me whole. That's why I sing. Oh, that's within me. Bless his holy name. Soul of Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. Say my soul loves Jesus. Oh, oh, Lord. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. Say my soul loves Jesus. Everything that's within me. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. And here it is. Say my soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. And every time you walk, say my soul. Oh, my soul loves Jesus. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. Say my soul loves Jesus. Ooh, yeah. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. My soul. I was lost and turned back. My soul loves Jesus. Bless his name. Without God's only Son, you see my life was so empty. My soul loves I was lost and undone. My soul loves Jesus. Without God's only
now
Son,
according to your cell phone,
you see I fell so far astray.
that is the TV. What you can do is just play here. I'll call you up first. Second, third, I'll come to you. Good morning, everyone. We are at Trinity Baptist Church. I know you know that. This is Sunday school, and I have entitled it The Church at Study, because that is what we are doing. Let us have a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for a day we haven't seen before and we won't see again. It's raining, Lord. raining outside. You bring the rain, you bring the sun, you bring the snow, you bring the sleet, you bring all of that. Thank you for allowing us to have a safe journey here. Before we leave the great 10 o'clock service, please keep us covered as we go home or run other errands. You've got a word for us here, dear God, and quite frankly, it's a little bit difficult to digest. But it is your word, and if we follow the example of your word, we won't have to be like Judah. Ladies and gentlemen, our scheduled topic, we've fallen and we can't get up. The lesson text comes from 2 Kings 24:18 through 20. And if you want me to repeat it, I'll be glad to. 2 Kings 25:1 through 7, and 2 Kings 25:8 and 9. It was confusing in the book, but I went by the Bible verses in our lessons. We've fallen and we can't get up. The key verse, Jerusalem and Judah, and I'm reading from the Revised Standard Version. Jerusalem and Judah so angered the Lord that he expelled them from his presence. 2 Kings, that is 24:20. Being a teacher, I immediately, Sharon, if you expel somebody from school, they acted up. Now, we might give them, I remember many detention days. And I don't know if anyone here remembers Peak. Peak. And I was one of the Peak teachers. Quite frankly, now that I'm gone, I can tell y'all a secret. In Peak, for me, rather than tell the students to be quiet as they were supposed to be, I let them chat. And I'm telling you, they told me some things that make the hair curl on your legs. I don't have any hair. They make the hair curl on your legs. And so I got to know the person. The only thing they got me in trouble because one of my best friends came to Peak after me, and I told them, sometimes 5, sometimes 15, sometimes 20. I said, now look, you all are supposed to be quiet. When Miss Alexander comes, please don't talk. Well, they talked. And again, one of my best friends, she told the vice principal on me that Miss Freeman let the students talk in Peak. I didn't get angry at her. I didn't, and I'm so glad. I didn't make a big deal, but my point is, I hope that in school, everything, every step, Carolyn, every step, ladies and gentlemen, Garnett, every step is done before you have to expel a student. And we all know, expel, kick them out. Kick them out, put them out. We've fallen and we can't get up. As one of the most significant events in the history of Judah, the Babylonian invasion and subsequent, look at that word, I'm coming back to it, and subsequent captivity of the people had profound theological implications for what it means to be God's chosen people. Though it may seem that the siege, there's our word from last week, and exile happened quickly, the Babylonian invasion unfolds over nearly 20 years before the exile begins, a period which will then last for 70 years. Babylon invades Judah and takes its inhabitants on 3 separate occasions. The first occasion occurs in 605 BC, 605 years before the birth of Christ, when Nebuchadnezzar II Then king of Babylon, here's another word, besieges Jerusalem. During this invasion, many nobles, young men, many nobles and young men, such as Daniel, Hananiah, we've heard him, Mishael, and Azariah, later renamed Belshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego by Nebuchadnezzar, are captured and taken to Babylon. The second invasion in 597 BC results in the capture of King Jehoiachin and the exile of more citizens, including the prophet Ezekiel. The Babylonians also take many skilled workers and craftsmen captive. The final invasion takes place 11 years later, 586 BC, and is the most destructive. And this is where we are today on this invasion. The Babylonians destroy all of Jerusalem, including the walls and the temple, seizing whatever treasures remain and deporting most of the surviving population. If you deport, you also put them out. Those who, and I'm thinking those who don't have any great skills, or maybe elderly people, where are they going to go? Well, this is the setting of this week's lesson. Babylon is beginning its last invasion of Judah, and Nebuchadnezzar installs Zedekiah, the vassal of Judah, in place of Jehoiachin. Zedekiah, like his predecessor, conspires with Egypt to rebel against Babylonian rule. Now, we have some definitions. The first one is subsequent. If something is subsequent, it comes after, it happens after. In our sentence, here it is, the Babylonian invasion, and afterwards, the captivity of God's people. Besiege, surround a place with armed forces in order to capture and cause to surrender. Crowd around oppressively. Black folks say, you're dogging me. The difference between a siege and the blockade itself and to besiege is to surround an enemy stronghold. If I'm understanding this, the siege is the blockade. If you blockade something, folks can't get out, food, things can't get in. Now, if you besiege someone, you actually go in there and dog them out. Also, while we are in this lesson, y'all are not here to serve me. I am here to serve you. If anyone has a question or a comment, if you want us to repeat something, we've got wonderful readers, let us know. On vassal, ruler of a nation that holds a lesser position than more seasoned, more, I don't know, want to say mean, more greater countries. In biblical times, Israel was considered a vassal of mighty Babylon. Also, there was a point where Assyria took over Egypt. Persistent, continuing to repeat an action for a long time. A synonym, steadfast, relentless. Proverbial, a well-known familiar phrase that offers advice or wisdom. For instance, actions speak louder than words. Birds of a feather, the early bird catches the worm. Proverbial, a voice or term that imparts wisdom, knowledge. Chronological, we've all heard of that. Arranged in proper order, arranged by time, For instance, first, second, third, fourth. Autonomy, having the ability to make one's own choices rather than having decisions made for you. Looks like all of us grown folk, we pretty much have autonomy in how we live. And of course, we are responsible to and for our loved ones. Final one, illusion, a deceptive impression, something being different than what it really is, something that isn't real. I think about those movies that we see, and somebody's in the desert and they're thirsty, they're looking for water. I think about, well, I'm gonna tell y'all, I like Cheyenne Bodie. I like Cheyenne, and I like Laramie. And Cheyenne has been in the desert looking for water with a group of people, and somebody says, "There's water over there," and people run, of course, and scurry. When they get to the spot, it's not there. What he saw was an illusion. We have wonderful readers. Sister Sue's coming up. Sister Keesa's coming up. And again, our dear friend Sharon, I'm going back. The verses, the final rebellion against divine, anything that divine is divine, it's godly, authority. And I'll do the King James Version. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah and Libnah. I'm sure they're not talking about our weeping prophet, Jeremiah, because he didn't get married. He didn't have any kids. The Lord told him, "You just preach my word. Don't get married." 19. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. I hope it's not like father, like son. For though the anger of the Lord, through the anger of the Lord, it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah until he had cast them out from his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get into this lesson, I must tell you, this is the saddest lesson I've ever taught. This is the saddest lesson you all have ever read. But quite frankly, if you mess with Jesus, you're going to get the big boom. That's what I call it, big boom. Come on up, Sister Sue. What did you say? Everybody and the audience listening to us from outside, Rosa said that what we just read is very much like these times. Uh, I tell you what, as usual, you know what I generally say. We got a lot to do, but a short time to do it in. This Zedekiah, in a way, reminds me of that person in Washington. And if you know what I know, can you imagine what's in store for him? He continues, he's persist to hurt the people. What I think that he and Zedekiah had in common, Zedekiah would do anything to benefit himself. That's somebody else I know. It's 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Come on up, dear. You can take this if you want. Or you want me to hold it? No. Okay, sweetie. Sister Sue is coming up.
And we're going to do know it, right?
Mhm.
Persistent rebellion against God eventually leads to judgment, even for those in covenant leadership. Zedekiah's short reign and Judah's fall stand as powerful examples. Originally named Matanah,
Mhm.
he was Mattaniah. He was renamed Zedekiah by Nebuchadnezzar when installed as king of Judah, a change that reflected his role and expected loyalty under the Babylonian rule. Though he was just 21, he was old enough to have seen the wickedness of his predecessors and therefore make the decision not to follow in their footsteps. Unfortunately, like the kings before him, he also did evil in the sight of the Lord. Verse 19. Zedekiah's mother, Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, not the prophet, undoubtedly influenced the king's decision to follow in the footsteps of his predecessors.
Now it's his mama's fault. She in it.
Known as the Jubera
Yes.
or Queen Mother, she would have helped guide the king in both political and religious matters. What a difference a mom can make. Jeremiah.
Did you all hear that, audience? And that's the truth. What a difference a mom can make. And even Stephen, what a difference a dad could make.
Jeremiah 34 portrays Zedekiah as a man who hears and understands the prophet's warnings, but refuses to obey them. Under his rule, slaves are initially freed in accordance with God's covenant, only to be forced back into bondage as an act in direct violation of that covenant. Zedekiah judges every situation by how long its outcome will preserve his power.
Washington, D.C.
All about me.
Let me please reread the sentence that Sister Sue just gave you. Zedekiah judges every situation by how long its outcomes will preserve his power. At least he gonna stay. At least he gonna stay until after the ballroom is built.
But it was all about his independence. He wanted to be independent. He didn't want to have to do nothing. God used Zedekiah's persistent wickedness as the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back.
Proverbial.
Verse 20 functions as both a final sermon and a final judgment against Jerusalem, the northern tribes, and Judah, the southern tribes, because of the people's ongoing disobedience, particularly their idolatry. They have reached the point of no return. God's patience has run out, and he has driven his people from the land of their inheritance. They have finally fallen and can't get up.
They have finally fallen, well read, and can't get up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in 2 Kings 25, 1 through 7. And I want to read from my favorite Bible. And as I do this, I think of, and this is, I like the New King James Version, but as we are going along in life, check out different Bibles. Different Bibles will say the same thing, but give you a different interpretation in case a different word is used. The fall and captivity of Judah. Now it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and all his army came against Jerusalem and encamped against it. Siege. And they built a siege wall against it all around. So the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine had become so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. 42 million people have been denied their SNAP benefits. Who does that? And then, in a very slick maneuver, he goes to the highest court in the land. Who does that? To have a pause, because he doesn't, I don't know why, why you don't want to feed people. You're not giving your money, you're giving them what they have earned. Going on 4. Then the city wall was broken through, and all the men of war fled at night by the way of the gate between two walls, which was by the king's garden, even though the Chaldeans were still encamped all around the city, around and against the city, and the king went by way of the plain. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king, and they overtook him in the plains of Jericho. All his army was scattered from him. So they took the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah, and they pronounced judgment on him. Let me go back to that word. I believe it's Riblah. Riblah. Then, then they killed the son of Zedekiah before his eyes. Subsequently, afterwards, put out the eyes of Zedekiah, bound him with bronze fetters, and took him to Babylon. So he was allowed to see his sons be murdered, his sons be killed, and then someone going blinding. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, that that was kind of the general purpose or kind of the general way of doing things. The king treated, and it says in other literature, that the king saw Zedekiah as just an escaped slave, so you can get the worst. And he certainly did. Sister, you ready to come up? You want me to come to you? Wait a minute.
To say that what I did find out when studying this lesson, that Zedekiah actually took an oath to King Nebuchadnezzar. It speaks about it in Ezekiel, and an oath to God that he was going to follow him, that I will not rise up against you. I will. So I'm thinking that's why he did that.
Intelligent comment. Does anybody have any seconds? Now, if an insightful comment, Rosa, ladies and gentlemen, if someone is a vassal nation, they are supposed, quote unquote, Sister Dorothy, they are supposed to pledge allegiance to the big king, to the big nation that captured them. And you think about it, Zedekiah, 21 years old, he's still a puppy. 21 years old, and all of us have made, I don't know about y'all, at 21 and 22, and I'm glad the Lord is not a blabbermouth. Because when you are young, we sometimes make foolish decisions. And underlying all this, the people actually were following illusions, brothers and Sister Smith. They thought, Sister Miller, as God's chosen people, that he would, as he had so many times, he would intervene and save them. But the people of Jerusalem and Judah sinned so much against the Lord, and especially as Sue read, with idols. Now, you know the Lord don't like that. He does not like ugly idols. So if you have idols, were they the small gods, small g, of the Babylonians? You worship them and not the supreme God, the only God. You ready? Sister Kisa's coming up. You can do what you want. How are you comfortable?
Okay. At the age of 32, Zedekiah's indecisiveness and self-interest proved to be a fatal combination when they led him to turn against Babylon. Despite strong warnings from Jeremiah, family members, and advisors, and despite the fatal example of his older brother, Jo, Jo,
Point, close, close. Ladies and gentlemen, with these names, these got to be black folks. Jehoiakim.
who had also rebelled and was carried off by Nebuchadnezzar, ultimately dying during a siege. Zedekiah chooses to ally himself with Egypt and rebel against Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, used by God as an instrument of judgment, responds by attacking Jerusalem. Divine judgment often comes through human agents, bringing both political and personal consequences for covenant unfaithfulness.
Mm.
The chronological note at the beginning of verse 1 in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month.
Listen and see how precise the time is. 10th month, 10th day, 10th year.
Is intended to draw attention to the significance of the event. There are two probable reasons for Zedekiah's rebellion. First, after more than one failed attempt, Egypt persuades him, along with the kings of Tyre,
Babylon and
Babylon,
uh-huh,
and possibly Ammon,
Zedekiah.
to join a pre-planned revolt against Babylon. Second, Zedekiah's own self-interest ultimately leads him to give in to ambition. Battle-hungry military officers and false prophets who instill in the people the confidence that God of Israel would never forsake him or allow the temple to be destroyed. See Jeremiah 5:12, 14, 13. Zedekiah tries to please those who want to rebel, even as he senses the danger. When the end comes, he is unable either to surrender or to stand up to his people. Nebuchadnezzar and his army besieged Jerusalem from late 589 to mid 587 BC. Theologians suggest the long siege was due not to Zedekiah's strength, but Jerusalem's fortified walls. As with any barricaded city, nothing, including food or resources, can enter. The city eventually runs out of food. When captured, Zedekiah is punished like other rebellious slaves, even subject kings. In the ancient Near East, he is blinded. See the IVP Bible Background Commentary, Old Testament, V.H. Matthews et al. 2000. Forcing him to see his sons executed beforehand likely serves as emotional torture meant to outlast the physical pain.
Well done. And so that seems as Kisa read, Power for the Chorus in the Middle East. And this once arrogant young man, I wouldn't, do you remember the song? I didn't mean that I was round then, but you remember that song by Etta James, I Would Rather Go Blind. You remember that? And it was really a love song. I'd rather go, she's one of my favorite singers. I'd rather go blind, Carolyn Sharon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd rather go blind in this song than see her young man, walk away. I bet you if he had to do it again, I think Zedekiah would rather have gone blind so that he could not see his sons slaughtered. What kind of life is he going to live? We're back in our sacred Bible, destruction of the sacred place. 2 Kings 25, verses 8 and 9. Let me do the New Revised Standard. In the 5th month, dig this, just precise. In the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, his name, Nebuzaradan, these folk black, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the bodyguard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. He burned the house of the Lord, the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, every great house he burned down. Can you imagine? Not, and that brings to mind, let me do the word in a sentence. That brings to mind, Deacon Robertson, that brings to mind the old phrase, it's better to go blind. There's another phrase too. I'll let you know what it is. We're going back to our last reader, Sister Sharon. Ready, dear?
We're on page 38. Months after the start of the siege, corresponding to the 5th month on the 7th day, in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, King Nebuchadnezzar sends a representative named Nebuzaradan to Jerusalem. As commander of the imperial guard and a high-ranking Babylonian official, Nebuzaradan arrives to supervise the final phase of destruction. His arrival signals the end of Jerusalem as the people have known it. Nebuzaradan carries out the king's orders to destroy the city, including burning the house of the Lord, the temple, the king's palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. Indeed, every significant building. This marks the accumulation of Babylon's conquest and the beginning of the exile for the people of Judah. Unlike the other times he attacked Judah, Nebuchadnezzar makes sure that every trace of Judahite autonomy is erased. The monarchy is abolished, the religious center is obliterated, and all but the poorest people are taken into captivity. For Nebuchadnezzar, this victory is just another conquest, but for the people of Israel, Babylon's triumph is their tragedy. The burning of the temple of the Lord is particularly devastating for the people of Judah. The temple was not only the center of their religious life, but also a symbol of God's presence among them. Its destruction represents a profound spiritual and cultural loss intended to shake the very foundations of their faith and identity. The royal palace, another key target, was the seat of the Davidic dynasty and the administrative heart of the kingdom. Its destruction marked the end of Davidic rule and the collapse of Judah's political structure. The burning of all the houses in Jerusalem, especially the important buildings, further emphasized the totality of the Babylonian conquest. It leaves the city in ruins, with its inhabitants either killed, exiled, or left to face the harsh realities of broken hearts and a devastated homeland. Ultimately, the people are forced to face the reality of their disobedience and the consequences of their actions. Their religious idealism of whom they want God to be prevents them from experiencing who God really is. This idealism created a barrier between them and the true nature of God, leading to a distorted understanding of their faith and relationship with Him. The destruction of Jerusalem and the temple serves as a harsh wake-up call, shattering their illusions and compelling them to confront the depths of their spiritual failings.
Thank you, well read. Since Columbus is the capital of Ohio, let's just say quickly, as the time goes, that not only did Nebuchadnezzar order the destruction of the State House, and you all know that's downtown, all of our homes, and you're going to get rid of the church, because with the church, temple, church, with the church comes their strength. So to round this up, a lesson review, the summary. One, the Babylonian invasion and subsequent captivity of the people lasted for nearly 70 years. Two, this week's lesson tells us about Babylon's last invasion of Judah. Three, persistent rebellion against God eventually leads to judgment. Jeremiah 34 portrays Zedekiah as a man who hears and understands the prophet's warnings, but refuses to obey them. That's 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue 5. Due to Judah and Jerusalem's ongoing disobedience, particularly idolatry, God's patience ran out. Zedekiah chose to ally himself with Egypt and rebel against Babylon. Despite strong warnings from Jeremiah, family members and advisors, there were two probable reasons for Zedekiah's rebellion. When the end comes, Zedekiah is unable to surrender nor stand up to his people. When he is captured, point 9, Zedekiah is treated like other rebellious slaves. He is forced to see his sons executed and then blinded by his enemies. Point 10, after the start of the siege, there's our word, King Nebuchadnezzar sends a representative to Jerusalem to supervise the last phase of Jerusalem's destruction. Following the king's order, Nebuzaradan, I wonder if his family friends call him Nebi for short. Nebuzaradan sets fire to the temple, Zedekiah's palace, and all the houses and important buildings in Jerusalem. This event marks the beginning of the exile for Judah's people. The burning of the temple of the Lord represents a profound spiritual and cultural loss that was intended to shake the foundations of Judah's faith and identity as a people. Now, for us, the last minute, no matter how blessed we are, God will not allow us to continue to sin against him without his judgment. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this sad lesson. What you're telling us, don't be like Zedekiah. What you're telling us, don't worship idols. What you're telling us, don't sin continuously. Don't be a sinner. Having said that, thank you for being here. Our audience here in the sanctuary, let me finish our summary. The destruction of the royal palace, the heart of the kingdom, the destruction of the State House downtown, marked the end of the Davidic rule. Prior kings were from the line of David, and the collapse of Judah's political system. The city is left in ruins, inhabitants killed, exiled, and or left with broken hearts and a devastated homeland. Now you remember, one of our presenters said that the poor, always picking on the poor people were left. Those who didn't have any talents were left. The destruction of Jerusalem and the temple serves as a terrible wake-up call that shatters the Israelites' illusion and forces the people to face the depth of their spiritual failings. Finally, another point for